Well, it's been 8 weeks since a virus that didn't exist just 6 months ago ravaged the world and crippled the economy. The Courier has been tracking 5 local companies on the front lines ever since. A rapidly growing brewery on the cusp of breaking out of the pack, a CBD skincare business that just landed a deal with QVC before the pandemic, an iconic ice cream brand preparing to celebrate a huge milestone, a hardware store in its 4th generation, and a decade-old steel company with pre-COVID dreams of doubling in size, now just trying to survive. On this week's front page centerpiece, American Dreams Disrupted, how small business owners are wrestling with the virus. They're adapting as best they can. Braxton Brewing had partnerships with professional sports teams and a new rooftop deck. They were about to explode, and then they had to get creative. So they started selling their stash of vintage dark charge beer, usually only released one day a year. They redesigned their seltzer packaging, and they've embraced what could be a new normal.
How many people will come back to bars, restaurants, tap rooms? We're making a big bet that e-commerce is here to stay for alcohol. We're going to be building an online platform to allow direct ship directly to your door. And so it's, how does that consumer behavior change over the next 6, 12, 18 months? And is that, long term? And so those are the things that we're thinking about a lot right now. And, when we do open these tap rooms, at what capacity can we open? So, we just put a pretty massive rooftop on top of this building, and we may have another summer where we don't get to use it.
Barb Smith, president of Journey Steel in Roselawn, was betting big on federal contracts, and now she's shifting her focus back to contractors that she's used to dealing with while relying on her faith and determination.
I expect us to survive this shutdown because we have to. Failure is not an option. It's sort of going back to square one when the business first started. We have to succeed, so that means we have to do whatever it is that we need to do to succeed.
All of these business owners generously opened their personal and professional lives to the Courier for this project. Joining us now to talk about this special report is Courier editor Rob Meyer. Hey, Rob, good morning.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for being with us today. Well, this report gives such insight and really gives us depth into what we've been seeing in the headlines, of course, for months now. What were some of the key takeaways for you from the stories with these 5 business owners?
Yeah, I think the thing that really struck me the most with everybody, and again, the Cincinnati Business Courier is a part of a chain of business papers. All 44 of these papers did a project similar to this week. So if you get on our website, you can see 247 profiles of small and medium-sized businesses. But I wanted to get that out there. But it's the emotion. It's the emotion that we're seeing from these business owners, people that are running these small, medium-sized businesses. They care deeply about these companies. They're essentially family to them. And as Barb Smith from Journey Steel said, failure is not an option. Woods Hardware is 4th generation. Graders has been around since the 1800s. These companies are going to do whatever it takes to sort of hold on, hang on, and wait for the economy to come back. In the meantime, they're just trying to make the finances work.
And you mentioned Woods Hardware. So Matt Woods spoke about some of the ongoing questions around the PPP loan and how the IRS is regulating those loans, and specifically as it relates to taxes. Were there any other concerns from this group about the loans that are being rolled out?
Yes, they all had concerns. Getting the loan was the biggest concern. If you remember back when these were rolled out, a lot of people couldn't get them. That is easing up, but there's still a lot of confusion in the marketplace as to exactly what parts of these loans need to be repaid, how long it's going to take to repay them, the tax implications. But the companies that we talk to really are super thankful for these PPP loans. Woods Hardware specifically, I talked to Matt, and he'll be on the show later about that. But they're still figuring it out. And restaurants and retail, just to end on this, these are 2 industries that really wanted the PPP loans to change, to have a bigger impact on them. They're kind of the front line on this whole thing. Restaurants and retail, they got hit hardest first, and it's going to be, as Braxton just said, it's going to be tough to figure out exactly when they're going to be back in full business.
Absolutely. And we heard also from Barb Smith with Journey Steel. And one quote of hers that really stood out is that they went from trying to double their business to just trying to stay in business. What are some of the strategies from these businesses to offset the losses that they anticipate this year?
Well, the companies have to really look at their costs religiously, and most companies do that anyway. When we interview, dozens and dozens of companies every week, expenses are obviously always in their mind, but really people don't open businesses to think about expenses as much as they do to think about growth, growing their revenue, growing their income. So having to sort of retrench and think about, okay, how many do I have to cut employees? If so, how many? Do I furlough them or do I lay them off? If I lay them off, I may never get them back. And what if the economy does one of those V-shaped recoveries? We're going to need people. So that's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about expenses. They're thinking about not cutting too deeply, but they're also worried about inventory. They don't want too much of it because they don't want stuff sitting on their shelves, especially perishables. It's all over the board, but they're all looking at expenses.
Well, Rob, Cincinnati's a town that really loves and rallies support around those small businesses, and this storytelling is so key to that. So thanks for your work on this, and we look forward to learning more in the coming weeks.
Thanks, Kyla.
Thank you.